So let's cut to the chase. How did I knock off an hour off my finish time for these two different marathons? So I did my first marathon in November 2021, and it was the Abu Dhabi Marathon. I completed 12 weeks of training. I thought I was prepared. I thought that the 42 kilometre distance would be hard, but I wasn't expecting it to be as hard as it was. That first marathon was an absolute slogfest. It really nearly put me off the marathon distance completely. The time I rocked up into Tokyo in March 2024, a couple of years had passed. I got better at running, and I got better at preparing for the marathon distance. So I want to give you 6 sort of key areas that I've learnt over those 2 years between the first marathon and the Tokyo Marathon. 6 sort of key areas that I think really have helped me get a better marathon time and just enjoy the marathon more and just have a better marathon experience. So, number 1, I think the biggest thing that I've learnt over the last couple of years running marathons is the importance of sleep and recovery. Now, they say getting a minimum of 7 hours of sleep per night is the gold standard for for your mental well-being and your physical well-being. And I agree. I think when you're training for a marathon, the more sleep you can get, the better. Just the next day's training, the next day's run just feels so much better, so much easier when you're refreshed, revitalized, refocused, and just raring to go. So I think sleep is such an underestimated thing that you can do, you can maximize to ultimately train for a marathon better and hopefully get a better marathon performance on the day. And also recovery. I think rest days are crucial when you're training for a marathon. So I've learned over time that for me, introducing 2 rest days per week whilst training for a marathon seems to hit the spot. So my first rest day is usually on a Friday, and that usually comes a day after a hard interval session or some kind of speed work. So basically a rest day, and it is a full rest day. I don't do any exercise, I don't walk, I don't run. It just allows my body to recover, not only from the night before, but just from the week's training. It just repairs your body. It just gives your body a chance to recover and get ready for the next day's run. So on Saturday, I usually do a long run. So I introduced a second rest day, and it's more of an active rest day on a Sunday. So that means maybe a walk, maybe a light swim, but nothing too strenuous. Certainly not a run after my long run. So I think introducing 2 rest days, one of them a full rest day, and the second one maybe an active rest day, has really helped not only my marathon training, but ultimately my marathon time, my marathon experience. Nutrition. Something I've learned over the last couple of years is how important getting the right fueling when you're training for a marathon. So in the 12 weeks or 16 weeks leading up to the marathon, that is the time when you should be starting to fuel your body properly. And obviously when you're training for a marathon, you're burning more calories. So I wouldn't worry too much whether the food you're eating is calorific or carb heavy or protein heavy. I would just say aim for a balanced diet. And obviously leading up to the marathon itself, the emphasis should be on carbohydrates. And obviously we all hear about this carb loading. What I did during the Abu Dhabi Marathon training was my carb loading consisted of pretty much just eating a bowl of pasta the night before. I thought I'd be fine with that. I'd heard about pasta parties and about just stuffing your face with pasta. So that's exactly what I did. Literally the night before, I had a big bowl of pasta, and in the morning of the marathon, I think I ate a banana and I had a cup of coffee. Carb loading can make the difference between a good marathon experience and a horrific marathon experience. During the first marathon, I think I had 3 gels. I think I ate a banana at the halfway point that was available on the course, and I felt tired. I was hitting the wall, I'd say probably from the 20-kilometer mark onwards, and something that I made a mistake of. I remember specifically chugging lots and lots of water on the course. I must have drunk, I don't know, 2-3 litres of water whilst running that marathon, and my stomach was sloshing around. I felt heavy, I felt bloated, but I'd heard you need to drink water when you're running a marathon. I went overboard. I drank far too much water, and now what I do, so every aid station, every drink station, I just take a sip or 2 of water. And obviously I take my energy gels now. I take an energy gel every 30 minutes. And during the last 1 hour, I consume 600 millilitres of high carb endurance mix, which is combined with water. So when I did my first marathon, my training consisted of 5-6 runs a week. And these were runs that were done pretty much at the same pace and nearly all done at the same distance. So I used to sort of get into the habit of running anywhere between 5 and 10k for, I'd say, 4 of my runs per week. I didn't do any hill repeats, I didn't do any tempo sessions, I didn't do any speed work or interval sessions, anything like that. I didn't mix up the pace or the distance or the type of run. And obviously introducing those over the couple of years since that very first marathon has definitely improved me as a runner, me as a person who's training for a marathon. So introduce a variety of different runs. And obviously a foundation of any marathon training is the long run. And don't forget to do your dynamic stretches before you start your run and more of a static type of stretch after your run. Pushing the pace on some runs and keeping the other runs relatively easy and slow has definitely ultimately given me a better marathon finish time. Running slower. Obviously we hear that all the time, run slow to run fast. It's true. It's something I've learned over the last couple of years, that running at a flat out pace is not going to get you anywhere. Yes, if you're training for a 5, 10 or 10k, maybe that is the way to go. But for running marathons, running slower, especially on your long runs, and you can introduce some marathon pace, but running slow on those long runs just ultimately makes you a better runner, a faster runner. Another big thing that I've learned over the last couple of years is the running shoes. The running shoes you do your marathon training in shouldn't be the same pair of shoes that you run the marathon in. A mistake I made in my first marathon. I ran the marathon in the same shoes that I did pretty much all of my training runs in. And the reason why I did that, I thought, well, they're comfortable, I'm used to them. They're doing pretty well in training, so they're going to do okay in the marathon. No, I've introduced running shoes that are specifically for race day. For the Tokyo Marathon, I did introduce carbon-plated shoes, and they made such a difference. It was such a refreshing change to wear another type of running shoes for the marathon itself. So yeah, invest in a second pair of running shoes if you can. But don't do what I did and use the same running shoes all the way through your 12, 14, 16 week training block and then running them in the marathon. It just did not work. Pacing strategy, oh my goodness, that first marathon, I was under the illusion that if I started out quick, I got to the halfway point well ahead of time, I'd be able to take it easy in the second half of the marathon. And if you've run marathons before, you know that's not the case. That second half of the marathon, especially after the 20-mile point, that's when things get really tough. So if you go out too fast in a marathon, you're gonna pay for it later on down the line. In Tokyo, I set off slower than my planned pace. So I always say, start slower than you want to, or you need to, or what your watch is telling you to do, and always finish strong. So bank energy, not time at the start of the marathon. The marathon is a long way. You have plenty of time to pick up the pace if you want to, throughout the stages, the different stages of the marathon. So for the first marathon, yeah, I went out way too quick. I thought I had it under control. I thought if I could just get to that halfway point, I'd be okay. And ultimately, I wasn't okay. I reached 25K and I was done. There was no pacing going on in my mind. It was just, I need to finish this marathon. And mindset, just having a tougher mindset, in particular during training for those long runs, those runs that are over 15 miles, getting onto the 20-mile or 32 kilometer distance, just having a different mindset, a different toughness, a different don't give in attitude. Realise that these long runs are really preparing you for those really hard moments during the marathon. I just think over a course of doing a few marathons, I've just learned to sort of embrace the pain a little bit, endure that moment where you're thinking, should I give in, should I give up, or do I keep going? So just having a slightly different, tougher mindset, that I can do this, I will do this, I will get to the finish line. It can almost feel impossible when you start a training block for a marathon. 16 weeks of runs and core and strength work just seems like a mountain to climb. But something I've learned over time is just to enjoy every run as it is and don't focus too much on the end game, the marathon. Just treat each run sort of almost like its own run. Enjoy the run. Yes, you've got a marathon coming up, but don't focus too much on the end product. It will come, marathon day will arrive, and then you really will need to have a mindset of not giving in, not giving up. Please click on that subscribe button. I'm in the final week of my marathon training for the Muscat Marathon in Oman, and that's in a week's time. So if you click on that subscribe button, I'll take you to Muscat in Oman, where you'll be able to see what we get up to in the days leading up to the marathon, some of the marathon footage itself, and some of the sights and sounds that we hear and see of Muscat in the days after the marathon. I'm going to throw it back to one of my Muscat Marathon training videos here, or is it here? I'm not quite sure. Click on that, see how my training for this particular marathon's gone. And I'll see you in the next one.